Furia rises again. When released, Furia was the most powerful healer we had ever seen in the game. Then came the constant nerfs, update after update, nerf after nerf, and Furia took the hits. At least until the final nerf where her right-click heal cooldown was increased. It was more than the character could take, and the Angel fell hard. Thankfully, Evil Mojo reverted that nerf with update 1.9. But time has passed, and Ying has risen up quite a bit while Furia has been away. Where does the character really stand now? In this video, the spotlight is on Furia, the Angel of Vengeance. Now, just because one nerf was reverted, that doesn't exactly mean that Furia automatically goes back to the same spot she was in before. There are of course a few things to consider. Like I said, Ying has risen up quite a bit, offering Furia more competition than only Damba. There's also the fact that once Furia received the right-click cooldown nerf, they also gave her more severe damage falloff. While the falloff nerf was of course needed, it keeps her from being as strong as she was before. Her damage is still very solid, but it doesn't offer her that massive advantage over the other supports anymore. So we aren't seeing Furia return as the undisputed top support. No, instead Furia now sizes up well with Damba and Ying. This breaks the rule of 2 that we're so very used to and gives us 3 very solid main healer options. Grover is technically a good main healer option as well. His main problem is he struggles against early game Cot a lot more than the other 3 do, but that won't matter for too much longer. The 3 main healers we have right now all offer something different. Ying offers a ton of healing that can be spread out amongst the team very well and easily. Damba offers a lot of healing and can decide who he wants to use both of his heals on, while also having a lot of CC. Furia has a very strong burst heal that can be put out every 2 seconds with max cooldown reduction and Chronos too. Healing multiple people at once is impossible without Solar Blessing, but Furia does have CC, good damage, and a very impactful ultimate to make up for that. Solar Blessing is of course a very good option. The beam will heal a tank to full quickly, even through Cot 2. The downside, however, is that without voice comms, using the beam effectively becomes a lot harder. And that's mainly because teammates can unknowingly dodge it, despite how good you may be at landing it. The heal beam is still potentially her strongest asset by far, however, even outside of highly coordinated play. In public games, if your tanks take into account that you have the beam heal, they can make it easier on you to land it, by either listening for it or quickly turning to look for it, or trusting that when they're low and behind a barrier, they'll receive a beam, as long as they know you didn't just use it. This is a rarity though, I'll admit. I have not seen many players that are used to playing around beams, but hopefully as time passes, that'll be different. You also don't necessarily have to be in a highly coordinated environment like a scrim for example to be able to communicate your beams. If you are duoing with one of your tanks, you can call out your beams to them. Or if you're in plat or below, you can play competitive in groups of up to 5 and in turn you can communicate your beam to your entire team. Beam callouts are pretty simple. You call out the cooldown of it, beam in 4, 3, 2, 1, and then right before you throw it, say, I'm sending the beam to insert name here. Very simple callouts that are relatively easy to pick up. You just have to put in a bit of time to get used to doing so. I also want to point out that you don't exactly have to use your beam to heal tanks exclusively. That's normally how you get the most value out of it, yes, but let's say one of your DPS are about to die and your right click is on cooldown. If they're right in front of you so you can quickly get your beam to them and save them before your right click cooldown is up, it's valuable to do so. Also, let's say your DPS is getting dove by a flank and they're getting right on top of them. If you beam your DPS, you won't only heal them, but you'll likely stun the diving flank as well, and at that point, their life is over. Again, the heal beam is undoubtedly her best talent, potentially. I personally use it exclusively because their only other solid talent is Cherish, and that only gives about 200 more healing to a low health Fernando, for example. I personally value Solar Blessing's potential over that 200 extra healing, but running Cherish if you want that safe, consistent option isn't a bad thing at all, and Furia is still very viable with it. However, those are the only 2 talents you want to be running. Without them, there's no real point in running Furia over Ying or Damba. I do want to point out that Solar Blessing's biggest counter is Willow because of Dead Zone, but at the moment, Willow is basically dead. The nerfs Willow received, plus the buggy, very slow ultimate, make her a big liability. With her gone, it is harder to effectively counter the beam heal early on. You only really need the ban Leon because of Def and Taxes. All the other early game anti-heals only go up to 75% and the beam heal can heal through that reasonably well. Now, what builds do you want with these talents? Well, for Cherish, you want something like this. Lightforge 5 is an absolute must because with this at 5 and Chronos 2, you are getting out right clicks every 2 seconds, and many may not think that 2 seconds instead of 3 is a big difference because it's 1 second, but trust me, it absolutely is without a doubt. That 1 second off greatly increases your overall healing output. Burning Oath is Furia's only real sustain option, so you want this at around 4 ideally. Light of Dawn is still a very solid card because it does still affect the TTK of some characters even with only 200 barrier health on it. It's a very good one, but it is interchangeable. You could, for example, run Stoke the Fire instead to have your beam up more often to get out those stuns. Pyretic Dynamo and Incandescent Being are good fillers. As for a Solar Blessing build, it's basically the same except you're running Stoke the Fire every time at a minimum of 2 points, and Solar Flare at 2 or 3 points. The thing with Solar Flare is it makes it easier to land the beam, but it also makes it easier for your beam to clip on other allies. How much of an increased radius you want can depend on how wide the map is. Like on Bright Marsh, you'll probably only want 10 or 20%. While on something like Fish Market, you'll probably want 30% at the very least. Now, that's Furia right now, but I do want to talk about her in the near future. As we all probably know by now, all early game COT, Wrecker, CC, and reveals are going away, and Furia will greatly benefit from the removal of early game COT and CC. Mostly COT, because then Def and Taxes will be gone, and the only super strong early game COT will be Dead Zone. That's only really if Willow is fixed too, cause if Willow is not, then Willow may end up still being really bad since her ult is a suicide button. If they do fix her, then you could just go ahead and ban her since again, Dead Zone will be the only real counter. I see Furia becoming very strong because of that, and maybe even the top healer over Ying and Damba again because of how hard it will be to deal with Solar Blessing if they don't preemptively nerf it or add another strong base kit anti-heal into the game. I'm pretty hopeful they do nerf the talent preemptively because if they don't, it's gonna be pretty crazy. Furia alone will pioneer a sustain/tank meta. But on the other hand, Furia, as well as Ying and Damba, will all have more competition when it comes to main healing. Grover will be fully on par with them since he won't have to deal with early game COT, and Ceres is getting Void Abides put into her base kit so her utility will rise with Agony, or her bulk and damage will rise with Soul Collector. Pip and Grok will also be stronger, but I don't really see any reason to pick them over the other main healers when it comes to main healing, even in the next meta. I don't exactly know if Ceres and Grover Rising would be able to stop Furia from being top tier if Solar Blessing isn't nerfed though. It's anyone's guess really, but I'm personally leaning towards it won't. It is still something to think about though. So to quickly highlight a few things, Furia is back and on par with Ying and Damba, Lightforge 5 and Chronos 2 is a must, and with Solar Blessing you can go straight to Chronos 3. Also, going forward into the next update, Furia could become an absolute healing monster. Anyway, what do you guys think about Furia? Glad the Angel of Thickness is back? And how do you think Furia will fare going into the next meta? Let me know in the comments below. And that's pretty much it guys, I want to thank you all for watching, I very much appreciate it, and I'm gonna see you guys laters. Bye!